Dr. Mungwa,
Yes.
please.
Yeah. Thank you. It's very important, the developments that are happening all across West and Central Africa, headed by Senegal in the West and now Chad. And I think what I can say is that the social media and the globalization have been an equalizer. Remember that one of the reasons why these colonial powers were very, very sort of omnipotent is because they had access to information which the general public did not. And therefore, they acted on that information, and everything came to us as a surprise. Just take the case of Senegal. People do not know what that the president was referring to. In fact, there was a massacre in Senegal after World War II when ex soldiers who fought during the war went to the French embassy asking for their salary as ex-combatants, and they were all summarily shot and killed. And that has remained in the minds of Senegalese up to today. If you take the case of Chad, I don't think Chad has ever had peace ever since they had independence. And the French have been there, and they've been exploiting all sorts of minerals while the country is in turmoil. And when the Russians arrived, I think they were able to create a connection between Chad and one of the oceans and sort of seaports through the north and not through West Africa. And remember that normally, when you have a country which is landlocked is always a challenge for you to communicate with the rest of the world. And that is what, now that Chad has been able to overcome that, I think they have the right to reset to ascertain their sovereignty. Um, Information and what the French have done. I mean, it's so painful what France has done to West Africa or French Africa, because what they have essentially done is that they have turned the countries into French provinces with no autonomy whatsoever. And they literally appoint presidents like provincial governors, and they all report to France. And therefore, not the interests of those countries are taken into account when making economic or any political decisions. Everything is dependent on what France wants. And that's why they have stayed in poverty over these years. And now that the world has become a global village and everybody knows what is happening everywhere and nobody can hide information, now people are getting educated. And the channels that are available for people to understand what is happening is so many that this colonial powers cannot control. They cannot be able to 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 close down, and that's what is happening. And this is going to even get into La République and other French African countries. Just a matter of time. They will come to realize it. Even it starts with the population. When the population is against the government, just a matter of time. And I can assure you that that's what is going to happen in the months and years to come. Over to you.
Yeah, Dr. Fred, Lobati, we've seen France key their way all through history in Africa. And with all of what is happening right now, what do you have to say?
I look at the French as a poisonous snake that has the qualities of a chameleon. The chameleon, changes its color based on the landscape, so you cannot identify it. If it's on green grass, it looks green. If it's on brown stone, it looks brown. And if you don't look carefully, you will not see it. But a chameleon is not dangerous to humans. I don't know cases where they bite and kill. But snakes do kill. And that's what the French are. They are like snakes, truly, because they destroy. But they also are chameleons that change with the landscape. You heard that for that defense minister saying that the defense policy has to be adjusting with the changing times, but it does not change the character of France. So when you go back to the situations we talked about, let's take Chad. The former president of Chad, Idris Deby, who died. Remember that the agreement that the French signed with Francophone African countries in 1959, that Ahidjo signed it, actually was developed based on after a meeting in Congo and then with Cameroon first before they expanded it to other Francophone African countries. That was due renewal in 2019. And so the West African Francophone countries met, and the French used the guy in Ivory Coast to ensure that they signed it. At that time, the government of Senegal was not yet in power. These young people who were locked up in jail, and then the population rose up and they won the elections and threw out Macky Sall, whom the French were using. In Central Africa, Idris Deby, when they arrived Yaoundé as presidents, he thought that the African brothers were going to sit and think of truly what they wanted. And he thought that they should not renew the contract with France as well as renew the contract for the Franc CFA. And to their surprise, to the French foreign minister, I mean, minister of economy, and I think Christine Lagarde, who was of the IMF, they suddenly emerged and they were shocked that they didn't have the privacy to discuss as brothers what to do for the future of their own region and whether they honestly wanted a change. So he got angry and left Yaoundé in the night and went him back to Chad. And he also pronounced that he had not wanted to prolong his stay in power, but the French advised him to change the constitution to stay in power, and basically revealed that the French were the guys using those maneuvers in Francophone African countries to keep these dictators in place. Though in Cameroon, we may see Achide Achua using the Santa Mafia to change the constitution in 2008 by stating that an efficient president cannot be limited by term limits, it should be allowed to run again. The French were behind the whole thing. But basically, what I'm trying to bring out here is that what happened in France, in Chad, is that the French faked a military uprising, and then they got Idris Deby to go there like a hero trying to defend his country, and they killed him. That was a coup faked by the French. To cover it up, then they brought this boy, which some people say is not Idris Deby's true son, who was raised in his house and a military person, and put him in power. You know, Macron went to Chad to install him, and people were asking, what is the difference? If you are condemning military takeovers in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and other countries like Niger, why would you recognize the one in Chad? And of course, they continued and then faked a civilian change. The man changed now from a military guy to a civilian. So the French are responsible for the government change in Chad. They went to Gabon and they realized that Ali Bongo was a paralyzed person from a stroke, and he was an embarrassment to the international community. Was sick, went to Saudi Arabia, went to Morocco for rehabilitation, and people were wondering, what is this? And he said it's really an
I am on
embarrassment.
TV.
And the French
I am
faked
on
it.
TV.
The French faked a change by using their cousin to have taken over in a so-called coup, which the French accepted. So the coup in Gabon was faked by the French to continue their grasp and control of the country. Now, so the one in Senegal was genuine because it was young people who were against Macky Sall and were fighting for their people. They were locked up in jail, but did not succeed to prevent them from participating. The guy, the prime minister, was the guy that was going to be president. They banned him, and then he said, let his second take over. And so he was written in the electoral list, and he won the elections. And so you had a genuine change. And even then, the French are trying like a chameleon to go behind the scenes using different maneuvers, foreign presidents from around there to get these guys to comply. Anyway, but what I'm trying to bring out here is that we will see what the French will do in Cameroon. They will also try to maneuver and make a kind of a change that will give the impression that something happened and not by the French. And we're still waiting to see what that is going to be. Uh, Probably Biya will not succeed. The French have always put the children of their former dictators like Eyadema in Togo, Bongo in Gabon, but in this new changed atmosphere, I don't know that they will be able to succeed to bring Biya's son to be in power. So 2025 is very pregnant. We will see what happens there. But what I think is more dynamic for us to understand, you remember Biden, when he came to power, he said he will collaborate with Macron to solve problems in Africa, which basically means that Biden will do nothing and let Macron carry on with the genocide in Amazonia, which is what we have seen. They have done nothing. They have been signing agreements with Biya and did nothing about us. Now we have Trump coming in, talking tough. Let's see what his own stance is going to be with the French. But one secret information that I want to provide for us is that the president of Nigeria is an agent of the CIA. Okay, and the
Yeah.
CIA is using just the same like the president of Rwanda. I hope this is not too much information that I'm providing here. What I'm trying to say is that the president of Nigeria is serving the secret security interest of the United States. And what will happen to Ambazonia is going to be truly what the US government wants. And if the US government can prevail on the French and impose their will, Nigeria will comply and Ambazonia will be free. And we will see what the French do in La République du Cameroon to effect the change. So 2025 is going to be very pregnant. I'm not sure Biya will be able to succeed to bring his son in place. That's my little take on that one.
You just said a couple of things there, Dr. Lobati, which I like to highlight on. Is an affirmation, a confirmation that the government or President Sarko's vision to tilt his diplomacy towards America more is the right strategy. That's what you have just said in conclusion there. And from what you're saying, or what we have heard here this evening, France keys its way in Africa. What is happening in the Caribbeans right now, being championed by the by PM Mayor Motley of Barbados, is having some states in the Caribbeans file a lawsuit and seek for compensation. I don't know what compensation can pay for lives, but at least that could bring some closure for those who felt that Britain also misbehaved during slavery and colonialism in their states. So I'm asking the lawyers now, please, I'd like you all to be brief. They're already indicating in the Zoom that we need to round up. Um, do you think that, if at all, it's even true? Because if you get the analysis from Dr. Fred Lobati, Dr. Mungwa, and it's like France is just trying to play along, but their real intention is not really to divorce these nations in Africa. So they are playing a scheme, like Dr. Lobati says, they are trying to act like the chameleon, but they are still engraved in Africa. Do you think that if France is effectively booted out of Africa, Africans that have been victims of this carnage, decades of carnage by the French hegemony, rally and also file lawsuits and seek for some compensation, whatever it would be? Do you think that could be a strategy? Please, we'll begin with you, Barrister Fru, and then Barrister Mbesia, so that we can make our comments a little bit straight and summarize it a lot enough possible so we can move to the Zoom. Please, Barrister Fru.
I, to answer that question, I am not sold yet about what is happening in Chad and Senegal. I am not sold yet until I see the action. Because the French are so embedded in this French Africa in such a way that you don't get up overnight and want to leave. But having said that though, Chad, I saw this foreign minister of the Russian foreign minister in Chad. Chad must have come into an agreement with the Russians to protect the present Chadian government from the rebels. Because Chad cannot commit suicide by taking away the French military when the rebels are still there. So I think something is happening. The Russians' influence is taking shape in Chad. For the case of Senegal, I think that the Senegalese don't have a baggage anywhere that they cannot disentangle themselves from the French. So the Senegalese, these young men in Senegal, I think they mean business and France will leave. Now, let me take us back to Cameroon, which concerns us. The Accord de Coopération of 1959 was renewed by Cameroon in 2019. But Cameroon has been playing safe by doing what? You know, when you are a robber and you connive with others to go and steal, and then you share the booty of what you have stolen, you have a duty to protect each other, criminal duty, so to speak. You see the way Biya has played it safe by stealing our resources and distributing the booties to the members of the Security Council. I will name them. China. China bought pectin because Cameroon allowed it, because Cameroon had a contract with America to have pectin. China bought pectin. Cameroon accepted China for its own selfish reasons. China is drilling in the Gulf of Guinea, in southern Cameroon. Russia is drilling in the southern Cameroons, signed by the French and the British. The British have associated with the French to drill oil in the name of Perenco in southern Cameroons. ELF by the French is drilling in the Gulf of Guinea. What has taken place is that Beer has stolen our resources and shared to these people who command the world. May I also mention that the United States owns 40% of the resources in the Gulf of Guinea. It may not necessarily be in our territory, but they have 40% in the Gulf of Guinea. So all the members of the Security Council have been tied to what is happening in our territory. We like you rightly said, we have an interest to stick with the United States and see what Trump, who seems to have done something for us in the past, we'll see how he would advance. Will he advance with American interest? American interest is not in the southern Cameroons. It's in the Gulf of Guinea, because the Gulf of Guinea is not only in southern Cameroons. It's bigger than southern Cameroons.
Yeah.
Therefore, we have an interest to hang on to them and see where they take us to. Because the
Amazing.
situation that Beer did, what Beer has done, these members of the Security Council, permanent members of the Security Council, none of them can come to our help except the United States. Because the United States might have interest in the Gulf of Guinea, but it does not have interest directly right now, as we speak, in the southern Cameroons. That is the type of
That's
thing
an
that we should look at very carefully to talk about filing a lawsuit. I
yeah.
don't see any French speaking country in Africa that would file a lawsuit against the French. They have to use physical means by sending away the French military and the French baggage. If they file a lawsuit, they cannot file a lawsuit. It will not go anywhere. Where will it go? You can have a judgment in Africa, but can you execute it on the French? It's another matter.
Yeah.
So
So
I'm trying to see that.
we'll get deeper into that and the coup next week. But we have to and the coup in Africa and the French maneuver. I want to bring it to you now, Barrister Mbesia, as you be the last person speaking on this issue, so that we can all move into the Zoom meeting. You heard my question there, and you've heard all the other speakers. The crown is on your head.
Uh,
Speak to us, please.
Thank you. I'm going to be very brief. See, we make some mistakes
Go
sometimes.
ahead. You have the
This is
floor,
the
please.
we have been talking about cooperation agreements of 1959, but signed by France. There were two components for the 1959 agreements: economic component and the political component. The political component brought in the military. What was their role? To protect the regimes in place. It's not a defense agreement to fight against your enemy. It was a defense agreement then and now to make sure that the regimes in Francophone Africa, Yaoundé, Senegal, Burkina Faso, wherever it is, was protected by the French. And that explains why you could have somebody, we still have them today, 50 years in power. As long as that regime is there and protecting French interests, they will remain there. They didn't sign the military agreements to come and fight their enemies. That's why the Malians,
were the ones who first abrogated it. The rebels were dealing with the Malian government. The French people were there. They never fought them. Boko Haram have been in Niger, everywhere. They are not above France. The French did not fight them. They tried to perpetuate the regime. That's what even is happening in Cameroon. Because that's why Paul Biya, even in our politician, before he makes a change, he has to go to Yaoundé, to Paris, and seek permission. Because they want to get a regime in Yaoundé, in Chad, anywhere that protects their interest, economic interest. And going forward, again, what I saw in Chad, which we analyzed last week, the Chadians purported to abrogate a military agreement of 2019. And they went further to say their colonial cooperation that existed before remains completely intact. It is written there in paragraph 3. And so that's what they are doing. But going forward, the point is this. It looks as, even looking at, in 1959, when the countries were having independence, the Americans, the West, call it like that, realize, and they still realize it, what they call a sphere of influence. They interfere with the sphere of influence of their allies, the French, the British, and so on. They don't be there. And I would differ a bit with Dr. Loberty. You see, France is not a chameleon. No, 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 no. The French, to me, they are outright criminal armed robbers. They rob the African countries with impunity, publicly. They don't even hide their intentions. And so they are armed robbers from those countries with the complicity of the United States, because nobody can do embassy in Yaoundé, the Chad, the embassy in, the American embassies in Mali. They don't know what was going on economically, how the French were taking away everything from them. They knew those things, but they will not intervene because they are their allies. But unfortunately for them, I don't deal with the Security Council like as I say. No, that's a very different issue. The West that had they are the one who had colonies. The West that had colonies. Russia never had any colonies. They are member of the Security Council. China never had any colonies. They are not. They are members of the Security Council. They are the ones who benefited from independence because they kept their economic interests within their former colonies. But unfortunately, again, the Americans, let me just call it the West, they missed the point. They did not see China coming. China is not a human rights observer. They don't come there to give you things for nothing. They give you something for pay. They give you something for consideration. So back, the African Union, the whole African Union said wanted to be an office. We want an office for ourselves. They had no money. They will be one for you. And they come and be one for them. I don't know how many, 20 floors, how many. In Addis Ababa. That's how they entered. They came to Cameroon that we're talking about. Cameroon said, oh, our National Assembly is broken. They said, we'll give you one. And they have just built one, 10 times that the one that they had before, at no cost to Yaoundé. And so with that, they start to exploit, because that accounts for what the contracts, as says, have been signed by the Russians. They have been signed by the Chinese. Can the French counter this? Impossible. The Russians have developed a military interest to the West, what they call NATO, trying to express their own. Don't need your gold, they have enough gold. You don't need your minerals, they have enough minerals. You don't need anything like that. But they are interested in their own security. And once the NATO alliance decides to come, the Russians are intelligent. They say, okay, we know where you get this money to come and fight us. You know where you get all this influence. We'll destabilize you right there. And that's how they start to sign this military agreement. They are signing military agreements with African countries, not economic agreements, where we should threaten the West as a bloc. The West itself is called NATO. And so I don't know how far, what is going, I don't know the content of what the Senegalese signed. But no agreement will change anything until they abolish the 1959 cooperation agreements, which are purely economical. Until they have their own currency, until they have something like that. All those things are superficial. And again, the West has sat down dollar and the euro have seen it coming. With the BRICS coming in now, economically to eventually establish a bank that can counter the dollar, establish an economy, a monetary system that will defeat what the West has as the dollar or the euro. Only a question of they are still there. And until France is still possible to put somebody in your own favor them means what? Allow them to explore what they want, go without paying taxes, install the government that they want there, when they want it, and how they want it. They have lost this in Niger. They have lost it in Mali. They are eventually going to lose in other parts of Africa. But until that is done, the French sphere of influence will remain important. The agreements of 1959 will not alter anything because the
Yeah.
guy in Niger, in Chad, he owes his position to Macron as the president. That's why he put it there. Our economic agreements of 19, no, our agreements of our cooperation agreements of 1959 remain intact because you cannot by the finger that fit. Again, the West did not see this coming. They brought this on themselves. The West knew it. For the 4 years of Biden's administration, he had not food in Africa. Except a few months ago, a few weeks ago, days, weeks. He went to Angola. Why did he
Yeah.
go to Angola? What's the in Angola? American interest. They lost
Yeah.
their military
By
in Niger.
Sambesia.